Hi, this is the second session of our course on phonetics and pronunciation for teachers of other subjects in English, Clil teachers. In this session, we're going to concentrate on vowels, the differences between Spanish vowels and English vowels, and we'll see some rules that may apply to many vowel contexts, although not 100% of times, because that never happens in the English language. Things to remember from yesterday, we talked about the difference between Spanish being a syllable timed, that syllables were of the utmost importance to Spanish, whereas in English the important thing is stress, and we're going to talk about that as well, okay? You remember we have many more vowels in English. How many do you have in your cards? Yeah, if you open your cards, there should be 12 cards. So we have 12 different vowels in English, and we also have eight diphthongs. You can have a look at that in your charts as well. We talked about the difference between a voiced sound. What do we mean by a voiced sound? We did something with our throats. Exactly. When we pronounce a sound that produces a vibration in our throats, something you can tell. So if there's a vibration, we call it voiced. And if we make a sound that doesn't vibrate, we call it voiceless. Okay? And we talked about the difference between phonemes and allophones. You may have one phoneme in your chart, but different people might pronounce it with slight differences. That would be allophones. We're going to talk about basically phonemes. Okay? There are millions of phonemic charts. You have some on your tables. The ones you have on your tables come from a private school of English in London that's called Pronunciation Studio, and they specialize in teaching people to pronounce. They talk about accent reduction, okay? And I have to tell you, if you're ever in London, they give you one free class. So you can just sign up and say, oh, come on, I would like to try you. So you can go to this one class. Anyway, they have a lovely blog with lots of interesting things about pronunciation if you want to read them occasionally. This one you have here comes from the BBC, and basically you have the difference between vowels, consonants. These consonants here are all voiceless, as we said yesterday, and these are the voiced ones. So as you can see, most sounds in English produce some kind of vibration, and there are a few that are voiceless. Okay? And we talk about graphemes. These are the letters we write. Okay, so if you hear me say something about graphemes, it's the actual letters we write. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. These are all the sounds, all the phonemes you have in English, with some examples for you to check. You will have the presentation like you have yesterday's and every day, so you can have a look at home. In your charts as well, you have the phonemes and then some words that contain that sound, so you can identify better. Don't worry, I'm going very fast. So, what we're going to concentrate today on is on vowels. We're going to start having a go at vowels. Okay, this graph is supposed to be our mouths. Okay, you have to be quite imaginative. But anyway, if I put myself like that, this is, the front of my mouth. This is the back. Okay, this is the upper part, and this is the lower part. Okay, so we have different sounds there. Can you see them? Yeah, that's better. Okay. So, for example, in here they talk about rounded or unrounded. What do we mean by that? If we say that a sound is rounded, our lips make like a circle. Ooh, ooh. Okay? If we say it's unrounded, it means they are not closed, they're more open. We say E, obviously you don't close your lips. Okay, so this is what we mean by rounded or unrounded. So the rounded vowels are, for example, the long oo sound, or for example, the short oo sound. You have the very long o sound, the sound you have in door, o. Yeah, so this is rounded, exaggerating, of course. This is the short o sound. You say hot. It's hot in here. Oh, hot. Okay? Or the one you say when you say class. Ah. It's a bit rounded. Not as much as the others, but it's a bit rounded as well. Ah, class. Okay? While the ones you have in here, for example, when you talk about a cat, a, hat, that, cat, that's more open. Ha, a, a. This is a lovely sound. It's just like Spanish. E. Bed, red, Ted. It's very easy. And then you have these sounds, as I think we mentioned yesterday. This is the short one. I, hit, bit, pit. And this is the long one, but it's more like E. So, I don't know. Meat. Like the meat you eat, for example. Okay. And you have this in the middle. Okay. And the difference we have in here, if it says it's open mid, closed mid, or high, whatever, has to do with the position of your tongue. If you put it, if your tongue goes up, down, whatever. Okay? Basically, what you need to remember is the rounded and rounded. And then, whenever you find a symbol with these two dots here, they indicate that it's long. And if you don't find the dots, it means it's a short one. Okay? Fair enough. There is this strange thing, something called pre-fortis clipping. Fortis, we said, is a synonym for voiceless, for a consonant that doesn't vibrate. Okay? So, this strange name means when you have a word with a long vowel, I'm inventing.
We cannot see.
Thank you, because I zoomed too much. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh no, that's lovely. Okay, I'm not telling you what words these are. I'm just thinking of sounds here. Okay? How would you pronounce the first one?
B.
Okay, you have a b, and then a long E sound. Good. And apparently you've got exactly the same here, but you only change the last sound. Yeah. These are, let's say, complementary, but this sound is a and it vibrates, and this is the voiceless counterpart. It's exactly the same place in your mouth, but you say t, t, t. So in both cases you use your teeth. It's the same position, but this is voiced, and this is voiceless. T. Okay, so with that in mind, there's going to be a problem with the vowel here. Even if you have exactly the same vowel, when after this long vowel you have a voiced consonant, this is going to be totally long, no problems. But when you have after this long vowel, you have a voiceless consonant, it's going to be shorter. So this could be something like bead, it could be beat. It's a bit shorter, not terribly, but a bit shorter. Okay? And this happens when this syllable is a stressed syllable. If it's not stressed, nothing happens. Okay? let me show you some examples for you to hear what I mean by that. Okay, I'm going to play it here. In here, there's a list of what we call minimal pairs. Words that sound very similar except for one sound. And that sound is going to make a difference in meaning. Okay? Like, for example, bed, bet. Just this one sound, which is different, makes the difference in meaning. So you have minimal pairs in here, like the ones we used before. Bead, beat. And these, the second column shows you the shortened version. So you can read at home and you can practice. If you want, you can go to any of the dictionaries we mentioned yesterday and actually hear the difference between one word or the other. Okay? So we will come back to this pre-fortis clipping thing where we will practice that a bit. Okay? I think we mentioned this yesterday. I gave you this example. In American English, this distinction, this first vowel here is the one we use when we say cat. Cat, hat, that, bat. That's how we represent this sound. It's short, okay? And in British English, you have the long sound, the long R sound, the one we use in class, car, something like that. It's the long R sound, okay? In British English, you do have the distinction, it's very clear, and you use it in words such as, how would you pronounce this one? With a long R sound. Dance. You have to pretend you're the Queen of England. So put yourself in role, okay? So dance, chance, glass, class, and aunt. Okay, remember you never pronounce this letter. Okay? We talk about an aunt. My aunt and uncle gave me a present, blah, blah, blah. Okay? However, in American English, you would probably make no difference. So they would pronounce these words as if you were talking about a cat. And so you would say dance, tense, glass, and class, and in American English, probably, can you think of a problem? If you pronounce your relative, if you use it with this sound, it's going to be very similar to another word.
To an insect.
Exactly. So you're going to have exactly the same pronunciation. Okay? Something else that happens in American English is that this phoneme, depending on regional varieties, depending on different accents, some people make it in a very similar way to an E. It's not exactly an E, but it's closer to that. So from a British dance, you make it a dance, or something very close to a dance. Okay? And probably in songs, this comes over and over again. Okay? So, yeah, it is true in British and American English, you do have that difference in pronunciation. Okay? They use different phonemes for that. What we call vowel number 1, they have numbers in your cards, yeah? Can you open them, please? Yeah. What we call vowel number 1, is it long or short? Long. It's a long vowel, definitely. It would be something like... I wish I could give you rules for phonetics. I wish I could tell you, whenever you see these two letters in spelling together, you're always going to pronounce them like that. I wish, but I can't. For every rule that I can give you, I will have to give you the exception, and then the exception to the exception. However, there seem to be some rules that more or less apply when we talk about vowels, okay? And there are a couple of things that you can actually teach your children if you're working with children, or even with your teenagers if you're working with teenagers, because they are easier to remember. And some of them have to do with the history of a language we discussed yesterday. I'm just justifying my boring session yesterday. Okay? So, the first one, This is just a summary for you to remember, because the explanation is a bit long and boring. But if you remember these 4 things, it might be easier for you to know what I'm talking about, okay? Rule number 1. Imagine you have just one vowel, a single vowel letter, just one vowel, in a word that has at least 2 syllables, and the stress falls on the penultimate syllable, not on the last one, but on the penultimate syllable, okay? So that single vowel will be short when you have what we call a consonant cluster. A consonant cluster means 2 consonants together, okay? So when you have 2 consonants, a group of 2 consonants, okay, this will make this single vowel short. For example, if you think of the tree, you have this single vowel letter and then a consonant cluster, a group of 2 consonants. How do you pronounce the word?
Holly.
Holly, the holly tree, for example, holly. The stress, you have 2 syllables, the stress falls on the first or the second? On the first, so it's in the penultimate syllable. So in this case, because you have just one vowel letter and a consonant cluster, you use the short vowel, holly. Okay? What would happen if we had exactly the same, but just one consonant? How would you pronounce this adjective? Holy. Holy. The Holy Spirit, for example, it has to do with religion, this word. The Holy Spirit, the Holy Heart of Jesus, blah, blah, whatever. But it's exactly the same, but there's no consonant cluster. So in this case, you have a long vowel, which is a diphthong in this case. Can you see the difference? Holy, short vowel, but holy, which is long. Okay? If you remember this example, you'll remember the rule. That's all there is to it. Other examples which are not exactly pairs, but for you to remember, if you have a word like distraction, how many syllables do you have?
3.
Distraction, distraction. Where do you have the stress? What syllable? Track. Distraction. So it's the penultimate syllable. In this case, the stress falls here, and this is a short vowel. It's vowel number 4. A, cat, that, hat. Distraction. Okay? However, the same letter in this example, a train station, or, the PlayStation, or whatever, yeah? Station, in this case, you have the same thing. You have station. 2 syllables, the stress falls on the penultimate syllable, but you only have 1 consonant before the vowel, closing vowel. So in this case, you have a long vowel, a diphthong as well. Okay? If you remember, holy, you'll be fine. Okay?
It's difficult to see.
You can't see? Yeah, I'm going to try. Imagine you have just 1 consonant at the end of a final stressed syllable. Okay, so you have the stress in here. Okay? So, if you have just 1 consonant, probably that vowel sound will be short. Like the one you use in the first one? Fun. Or, for example, commit. The stress in that particular word falls commit. You commit a crime, you commit whatever. Okay? However, this is because of spelling reasons. These letters, even if the sounds are the same, when you spell them, they tend to be doubled. When you have just 1 syllable words, just well, cross. These are just spelling conventions that come from centuries ago. But anyway, but the situation would be the same as when you have with fun. Okay, so if you have just one consonant at the end of a final stressed syllable, probably the vowel will be short. Probably. Okay? Let's start with the fun part first. Okay, I'm going to show you a clip in a minute to explain this. Do you recognize this picture? Alpha blocks, yes, and people said alpha blocks? Yes, okay, can you tell everyone what alpha blocks are?
Cartoons about the phonics for small children.
Mm-hmm.
England, I think England,
Yeah.
they watch this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's a BBC show that was created by teachers and experts, of course, to help families who have children who are starting to learn to read and write. So they are starting school, they are starting with phonics, and what you have is each character is a sound. So they start to associate sounds and letters, okay? But it's a cartoon. And so probably these characters many times just say their sound. They go like t t t t or p p p or eh or whatever. Okay. So there's an episode, not at the beginning because they follow the same progression as they would follow at school. So well into the show, you have two characters with this letter, but they have different sounds. And in actual fact, this particular one that I'm showing, and I'm going to play for you in a minute. This particular one is silent, okay? But it's called the magic E, and it has a song. So we're going to watch a song if you don't mind, okay? You can find examples of these with words such as, for example, make. You don't pronounce this letter which is silent, and you say the name of this letter, make. The same happens with tape. You don't pronounce this as silent letter, and you say the name of letter, A. Or for example, with cute, again, we don't pronounce the E, and you say the name of a letter. In many of these instances, these people are to blame. The French scribes in medieval times that we mentioned yesterday decided at some point that in order to indicate this vowel was long, because in Old English you had both short and long vowels as well. So in order to indicate that, for example, this or whatever vowel was long, they added this E in spelling to indicate that the previous vowel was long. Currently you don't pronounce it, but it has retained, it's been kept in spelling. So it's a silent letter, but as I say, these people are to blame in many cases. And what we do is we pronounce the name of the letters. Why? Because these long vowels, during the course of the history of English, especially during the times of the great vowel shift that we mentioned yesterday as well, these long vowels evolved into diphthongs or other long vowels as well. Not always, again, it's not set in stone, but many times when you have two vowel letters together, you pronounce the name, you say the name of the first one, and you omit the second one. You can say that, or you can remember, when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. This is, one of these mnemonics that kids may remember at school. It's a traditional mnemonic for school. So when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. If you don't remember what I say, we're going to hear a song for you too. And now's the time to talk about one of the most important sounds in English, however poor and unimportant it might appear at first sight. I'm referring to schwa. As we said before, the schwa is a sound that always appears in unstressed syllables, in unstressed contexts, okay? And the other way round. Many times when you have an unstressed syllable, not 100% of times, but many times, you will find the schwa. You will pronounce it with the schwa, which is just as when you're tired, yeah? How are you today? So it's basically that. You're not really energetic, not enthusiastic, you're a bit tired. Basically, when you use vowels in stressed syllables, they are clearly distinguished from each other, or you can tell more or less with some certain clarity which vowel you're pronouncing. However, when you have unstressed vowels, and we're going to see the different possibilities, with the passing of time, they tend to go towards a schwa. Okay? If you think of these words, for example, Vanessa, can you pronounce the first one, please? Okay. How many syllables do you have? Two syllables. Which is the stressed one?
Second one.
The second one. So the first syllable, you're tired. Accept. You throw all the emphasis on the second one, which is the stressed one. So the first one is accept. Accept. Okay? Anna, how would you pronounce the second one?
Obtain.
Exactly.
Obtain.
That's the same idea. The stressed syllables, the last one. So obtain. Obtain. Yeah? Good. We have the third and the fourth word are pronounced exactly the same. Carmen, how would you say them?
Brighten.
Yeah. The name of a city and the verb from bright, you brighten up the room, you brighten up something. It's pronounced exactly the same. Brighten, brighten, brighten. It depends. But anyway, the stressed syllable, the first one, bright, brighten, brighten. Okay, and the name of a country? Britain, 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 Britain. Yeah, but anyway, the stressed syllable, first one, Britain. When you get to the schwa, you're tired. You don't want to say anything more. Okay? Okay, out of the 12 vowels I gave you, there are 3 of them which might occur in unstressed syllables. And only these 3. Okay? Which would be number 2, the short E. E. Hit, bits. So you may have it in unstressed context. When you say, for example, the word important, important, the first syllable contains the E sound, and it's unstressed, important, for example, okay? You might find the short U sound as well in unstressed syllables, okay? But even so, these 2, with the passing of time, that was my theory, my contention anyway, they will become a sort of schwa, or they tend to go towards that spectrum. Okay? Anyway, these 3 are the most typical unstressed vowels in English. What I'm going to ask you to do now is for you to practice that. You have to imagine you're very tired and you don't really want to... I know you're tired, really, so you can do that beautifully. You have to imagine you're tired and want to... Come on, do I have to speak? Really? So, what you can do... I don't know if you can see it. You have the right spelling on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you have some of these vowels turned into schwas. So whenever you find a schwa, you have to be tired. So very typically, a pair of trousers. As if you were thinking, a pair of. Okay, so in your groups, please take it in turns. Maybe you can read one sentence, each of you, to try and read this. Imagine, you don't want to move your mouth too much, you're tired. So be actors and actresses. Don't be ashamed. Have you noticed that, maybe it's just a coincidence, maybe not, there are lots of words that are, signaled here with a schwa. that are just maybe not very important words. I mean, for example, articles. Yeah. Maybe these prepositions here. I mean, they don't give you actual content. They're just, prepositions, articles, things like that, yeah? Maybe possessives, something like that. We will come back to this tomorrow, okay? But very typically, these kinds of words that do not give you actual information, they're just grammatical words. Many times they're pronounced with schwa or something similar, okay? In many dictionaries, you will find that when you have these two sounds at the end of a word, the schwa and then an r, you might find that it's a small r at the top of the schwa. What it means is that if the next word begins with a vowel, then you are going to pronounce the r, at least in RP pronunciation. You are going to pronounce the r to link it to the next word. However, in the case of father, because it is the last word in the sentence and there's nothing after it, or if there was a consonant, you would pronounce just the schwa but not the r. This is what happens in standard RP pronunciation, British RP pronunciation. American accents, for example, do tend to pronounce the r, whatever comes after it. As you will have the presentation, this is just for you to do if you want to practice at home. You have a whole text like that, so you can practice if you want, you can practice your schwas. And whenever you find the schwa around, I want to go to something like that, yeah? You can practice at home and see how it goes. If you think back and say, I remember I took a course a couple of years ago about, with some strange girl about pronunciation stuff. And I think she gave me some links. So the BBC have, specific videos and parts about vowels. To finish this session, and if you want to relate this to what we're going to practice in our next session, you can watch this clip from CS song Tip Drills and concentrate on this particular sentence and the clip I have selected on this link. When she says, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. Just concentrate on this. Listen to her, especially when she mentions that. So that's the end of this session. So until the next one.